There we go. Now we're recording. Excellent. Let me reshare my screen. Okay, so today's agenda is to just briefly talk about the project's goals and walk through the budget tool. And I'm going to show you features for budget reviewers, as well as create a budget with some APL features. We're going to answer any questions that you guys have. And I'd like it to be an interactive session. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or type a question in the chat. Emily will be monitoring that for me. So I'll be able to answer questions as we go along. And of course, at the end, we'd love to get your feedback for future enhancements. So please don't hesitate to share that as well. So why should I use Sage Budget instead of my Excel spreadsheets? Well, Sage Budget uses institutional data, and it calculates your salary, benefits, leave, fixed fee, F&A, all for you. So there's less chance of user error. There's also flexibility built in, so you can customize salaries and rates. You can add inflation and cascade your costs across budget periods. And you get to control who has access to your budget and what type of access. So you can lock things down so people can't make changes, and you can let them just read the budget. It allows for real-time collaboration. Multiple people can be in the budget at the same time and making edits at the same time. To help you with that, we have the ability to take snapshots. So in case somebody messes something up, you can go back and reload that snapshotted, the original budget back. And it also can track some history. And also budgets can be kind of created as like a template and then copied, and then you can use that same template over and over again. And you can also export your budget to Excel if you really like to use Excel, which I can't blame you. I like Excel too. It's a good thing. I'm going to go on now to the actual demo, and I'm going to start it off by from the budget reviewer's perspective or point of view. So if you are going to just review a budget, you'll have to get into Sage. And if you go to sage.washington.edu, you'll be able to sign in on the big blue button, which gets you into the production site. Or if you just want to practice and play with some different budgets or EGC ones, you can use the training site as well. I am going to use the training site because I don't want to create a budget right now in production. But when you do enter Sage, you want to click on the Budgets tab, and then you're going to be on this budget list. And this is a list of budgets that you have access to. It'll be budgets that you can edit or that you just have read-only access. It has a few key features. Obviously, the name of the budget is on here and the PI, budget number. If it's linked to an EGC one, you'll see that hyperlink in this column. And you can also see who was the last person to edit it and when. And then this last column is the format column. Current is the new design, and then the legacy means the budget was created in the old design. If you don't see your budget that you're looking for on this list, you can go forward to different pages. At the bottom, you can see I have like 21 budgets. Or you can search. You can pop in the search bar and search by budget title, by number, or PI. So I am going to open up our demo budget. And again, as a budget reviewer, I want to probably see an overview of the budget. So we have the budget. When you do open a budget, you land on this budget summary page. And the summary is a read-only view of the project's total costs. So it's all these sub-budget worksheets that you see here on the left. It's all those rolled up into the summary. At the top, you can see some key totals. You've got your total project costs and total direct costs, F&A information. And again, you have that link to any EGC one that this budget is attached to. The budget summary has three main tables on it. This top table is the salary and benefits. And then there's an other cost table. And then at the bottom, there's a projects totals table. And I'll go through each one of them. I'll start at the top. In the salary and benefits table, we default these sections all as expanded in the salaries section, just based on surveys that we took that most people wanted to see the specifics on the people who are part of the budget. So the section is expanded and you can see some key totals, you know, salaries and benefits, and these little icons, which I can show you in a minute. But if you want to see more detail, you can click this menu here on the right side, and it shows that I'm displaying 4 of 10 fields, but I can change those up if I want. Maybe I don't want to see salary and benefits broken out. I want to see it combined. So that simplifies it if I want to see a more simple view. Or maybe I want to see their percent effort. You can add that in. You can also, like, if I want to see how many their CPay hourly rate or their the hours of CPay on the budget, I can look at that as well. So it's kind of it's a neat customization to customize your view. And then these icons here next to the person's name, this one is, if you hover over it, it'll tell you what it is. And it's just saying that this person is getting APL benefits. I have a salary cap on this budget, so it's also saying that it's their salary is being capped. And then this is a note that the budget preparer or another reviewer added, and it's just, and if you hover over it, it actually tells you what the note is. And then at the bottom, you have all the totals for all the personnel. Does anyone have any questions on this personnel table in the summary? No. All right, moving on to other costs. So the other cost table has the sections kind of collapsed by default, but you can expand them. But for instance, the 03 object code, you can see by this 3 in parentheses that there's 3 line items. And if I expand them, I could see the details of the 3 line items. And this particular one has a note, so I can actually hover over that and see what the note is. And I can do the same thing with each section. Also, if you scroll over to the right and click on the 3 dots, you can see that this is actually, this cost, that secret stuff cost is in the oceanography sub-budget worksheet, where this one is actually in the primary budget. So it kind of tells you where you can find more details on it. If you do need more details, you can click on these worksheets. And then you can also see that I have a fabrication worksheet, a non-deliverable fabrication, and that is rolling up to the 06 object code, which is as expected. And if I almost forgot to mention, we also have a subaward, 0362 line, excuse me, that is rolling up to the other contractual service section. And those all roll up. I have allergies, I apologize. To the other cost section, all the totals roll up into that total line at the bottom. And your APL prorated direct costs are also in here. And then in the project totals table, again, everything is collapsed. You can just see the line totals, but if you expand things, you can see more details. When in the total direct costs, you can see what the costs are less subrecipient F&A, and then you can actually see the subrecipient F&A in there. In the F&A section, it lists it by worksheet when you expand it, so you can see the different F&A rates that are going on. You can see the base type, the location, and then the direct costs and the F&A. And then if you have APL fixed fee, you're able to expand this section and you can see which worksheet has fixed fee on it and what the fixed fee is for that worksheet. Does anyone have any questions on the budget summary? No? Okay. So another thing I want to just highlight, and I'll highlight it a little bit more when we work on creating a budget. There is a left nav here, a left navigation. And like I said before, your summary is highlighted. So that's how you know you're on the summary. But if I did want to look at more details, I could go to each individual worksheet. And you could do that just from this left navigation. You can also see the budget settings down here and history. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that when we talk about creating a budget, which I will do next. So if I'm a budget preparer and I want to create a new budget, again, I go into Sage, click on the Budgets tab. And then I simply go to this new big blue button that says Create Budget, and I want to select the current budget format. And when it opens up, it's going to tell me that you need to set up your period. So that's really the only thing you have to set up, is put in a start date for your budget and then the number of periods. And it defaults to 1, so you don't even have to type anything if it's only 1 period, but typically budgets are more than 1 period. And once you do that, you're pretty much set. You can actually go then to your primary worksheet, and every budget has a primary worksheet, and the primary worksheet belongs to the organization that's requesting the funding from the sponsor. So it's like the parent of the project. And on the primary worksheet, there's a worksheet settings section that has all the detailed information. Let me flip over to a budget that we created earlier that has some more applicable information on it. So again, I'm on my budget, and I have my primary organization, so my primary worksheet, and then I have a collaboration with the oceanography department, and I have a sub-budget for non-deliverable fabrication. I can add more worksheets if I need to. And when you just click the add worksheet button and you select the type of worksheet you want, whether it's internal, subaward, or a fabrication, and then you hit save, and it creates a new budget or a new worksheet for you. Now in the budget settings section, that has a lot of really cool stuff that you can set up. So like I said, when you're creating a budget, you just need to type in this budget start date and the number of periods. But we do have some ways to customize this. You can, if maybe your periods aren't all the same length, maybe you have, maybe the first period's only 6 months or 5 months. You can customize all that by putting start date and end dates. I can customize the name of the period if I want to. And that way when it'll show that on the summary right here, it'll show like the name of what I decided to call the different periods. In the next section is general information. That's where I can put a title for my budget. I can look up the sponsor. So I could, and you'd type ahead search. So it's really handy. So like NSF, I can do National Science Foundation, or like we had the NEB, the Naval Sea Systems. If you have an original prime sponsor, you can even add that. So the type ahead is really easy to find your sponsor, and it pulls from a database with all our sponsors. If I do have spending targets, like if I cannot spend over $100,000 per period, or I can change this to whatever I want, you can put those in, and then it, like if you see on the top here in the heading, it's showing that my $434,000 of total direct costs is red because it's above my spending target. So it's really a neat feature. And if you need to stay like within the penny of how much you can actually budget, you can even change it and make it custom for each period if you want. You can also set a salary cap, and that will cap everybody's salary at whatever you put in there, and you can add a note saying why you had to cap it. And in the data and calculation section, if we're at during that time where you can have the choice of using preliminary rates or current rates, you can select those. You can refresh and get the latest benefit rates, and you can decide if you're gonna round your budget to whole dollars, cents, or if you want to see, I think it's like up till 8 decimal points, so it shows a lot of detail. You can also choose cascading and the inflation rates if you want in this section. And lastly, you can decide who has access to your budget. So I'm on here twice because I have a connected EGC1, and I was the EGC1 preparer and the budget preparer. So I'm listed as an owner, which means I can edit. And I have Catherine also as an owner. I added Judy as a general collaborator, and I said she could edit, but if I only wanted her to view it, I could change that to view only. And you can add as many as you want. You just add the collaborator and you can start typing their name by first name, last name, or last name, first name. Now Emily can look at the budget there.
We had a quick question, Jill, on adding sponsors.
Oh, okay.
So the question is, can you add sponsors if there is a new one? So I'm assuming if you need to add in a new sponsor that potentially maybe isn't listed there, is that the question?
If that's the question, we can't add it in Sage. We would have to go to, oh, I believe OSP manages that list, that database. So you'd have to submit that to OSP. They'd add it to the database, and then it would, Sage would be able to pull it once it's added to that database.
Great. And then one more question in the chat. Will this system help to reduce overhead expenses in the PI's budget/projects?
Help reduce overhead expenses. In that it streamlines, I would think it would be a little quicker to use if that's what you're asking. It's kind of streamlines the whole budget setup, and especially once we start integrating with award setup, it will definitely reduce overhead, but I'm not sure if I'm getting to the actual question. If you have more detail. Okay. Well, if you have more questions, let me know. Oh, I want to quick touch on the history. So the history page is kind of cool, where it does do automatic snapshots at specific key times. Like when I connected it to an EGC1, the system did this snapshot, but also like Catherine did a snapshot yesterday. I did one yesterday as well, and you can name it whatever you want. So you can create a snapshot before you collaborate with another person, or maybe if you're the budget preparer and you want the PI to go in, take a look, maybe change up some expenses if they feel necessary. It might be good to create that snapshot before you share it, and that way you can always go back to what your original budget was. Okay. All right, so that's the left nav. Another really kind of fun thing on the left nav is that if I want to have more workspace, I can actually collapse the panel, and then I still have these little icons on the side, so I can still quickly go from primary worksheet to any one of these sub-budget worksheets just by clicking on the little icon on the left. So we're going to start with the primary worksheet and the worksheet settings. There's a lot of customization you can do in here as well. You can title your worksheet whatever you want. The org, you can easily select the org receiving funding, like you just start typing ahead and it literally pulls up a list and you can change it. Again, you can cascade your other costs. It automatically pulls in the right F&A rate for you. So if you just need to choose your location, and then if it's organized research, instructions, or other sponsors activities, and then it will automatically update the rate. APL back. Now, if I need to customize this rate for some reason, I can enable custom settings by just clicking this toggle, and now it's turned on. I can choose one of our other base types. If none of those will work, I can actually customize and create my own new base type by selecting and deselecting things. I can literally select everything, but then deselect like one item if I want to, and that could be my custom F&A setting. So it's very flexible. Turn that off. Also on the worksheets, you can edit your inflation rates if you want to make sure things are inflated as they go along in the periods. And then for this is also on the worksheet settings where you turn on and off APL benefits and CPay. So once they're off, then you can see how that little icon for Anna went away because she's no longer getting APL benefits. But if I do turn on APL benefits, I can actually customize the PDC rate. It does default to this 35.2 though. And then if I want fixed fee on my budget, I can turn on fixed fee. I can select a base type, either total cost less equipment, Or again, if you do want to customize your fixed fee base type, you can do that as well by selecting and deselecting the different sub-object codes. For CPay, if I turn on CPay, then I'll have the option to give CPay hours, and which will then charge the sponsor the CPay rate and benefits. To add personnel, it's really easy. You just start, you can add personnel, and you can, if it's a UW person, you can start typing and they'll start coming up based on their first name, or last name, first name, or net ID. You can use either any of those three, and it'll pull people up. You can select their role. And then when you click into this period space with the $0, the side panel on the right will open up. And this is pulling that person's salary from Workday. You can view any details, any allocations they have, and check or uncheck them. This is set to have a 2% inflation rate, but you can also select if it's calendar or academic summer effort, and you put in their percent effort that they're going to be working on this project. It'll automatically calculate hours and person months. It pulls in automatically the sub-object code classification for this person, but if I know that they'll be changing jobs, I can change it if I want to like faculty. I can change their benefit rate. This is custom, and right now it's set for standard benefits, but if I want them to have APL benefits, I can click that, and then this APL benefit rate will auto-populate based on the sub-object code that's been selected, along with the APL leave rate. And then it will give you that total of benefits on the salary. If I want CPay for this person, I can add however many hours of CPay I want for them for this period, and then it calculates. This CPay hourly rate is a calculation that's already in there based on their monthly salary. And then it automatically will default the CPay benefit rate, but again, that's customizable if I want to do that. If I want to add a person that is not a UW person yet, I can add a placeholder personnel. And if you click in the namespace, you can actually, if I might know their name, but they're just not in the UW system yet, I can add their information that I want, first and last name, and a title, prefix, suffix. I can add that for all the other personnel as well. I want to change his title, or it's pulling in the title that's in Workday. So sometimes it pulls in some kind of wonky titles. That's why we give the flexibility for you to change that title if you want to. Let's see what else. Again, it's showing these icons. So James is getting APL benefits and CPay. I can add notes if I want. So that way it'll show up on here or on the summary. Oops, spelling. There we go. So I just added that note, and if I hover over it, it says I'm getting CPay. And then it gives you kind of the subtotal for salary and benefits. Does anyone have any questions on adding personnel, or if there's any unique situations you would want to know how to do? Okay, moving on to other costs. So other costs are just what they say. It's for adding all the different types of costs, all the other sub-objects codes. You simply add another cost, and you can search by sub-object code or by object code, and then select a sub-object code. You could put in your own custom description. But if I hover over these three dots, it'll actually tell me what that 0204 is. And then I can, once I pop in this field, I can either enter stuff directly in, I'm pointing to it, into this field, like 2000, and it auto populates across the periods because I set it up to cascade. but I can also add an inflation rate. I go in here and add inflation. Ooh, sorry, I went out of it. So I added the inflation here and it'll update it in all the next periods for me. If I want more detail, instead of just putting like a lump sum, like quantity of 1 and the lump sum of 2,200, I can actually go in the right side panel here and say that it's 2. And then I could even change this to like $1,000. So I have 2 things that are $1,000 each if I need that kind of detail. A lot of people, when we did our surveys and our interviews, they said that they just wanted to be able to type costs across really easily. So we made it that you don't have to go into this side panel. If you don't want to, you can just type costs right in here as like you would do in Excel. I could resort my categories by clicking this link on the top here. You can also see, because we do have APL turned on this worksheet, that you're getting your 1910 APL right here at the bottom. And it's being calculated based on the percentage that we put in that field. And also we have the ability, we added the ability to add a subaward. So this is a subaward on this 0362 line. And subawards are a little bit different when you add them. You add, I can add a new one. 0362. Ooh, there's an echo. And then I can just, when I go in here.
Sub budgets is what I was asking.
Oh, what was the question? Okay. So for subawards, they want, we want to see the subrecipient total direct costs. And then if there's any subrecipient F&A, you can add that in here separately. That's really easy to do. Another fun thing you can do is, if you don't know necessarily what object code or sub-object code something is, you can actually search all object codes and just start typing like computers, and then it'll pull up every sub-object code and every sub-object code's description that has the word computer in it. So you can pick it that way. So that's kind of fun. And then at the bottom is the totals for this worksheet. So it's going to give you your total direct costs. And if you expand your F&A, you can kind of see the details about F&A to figure out how everything's being calculated. Double check your base type, your location, your rate, and then in the cost subject to F&A. And then of course at the bottom we have the fixed fee, which is charged on everything in here. And then your total direct cost for this worksheet. Does anyone have any questions on worksheets?
Jill, can I add a comment, please?
Sure.
If you could scroll up slightly for the other cost section.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a number of questions from people about the level of detail that's needed for the spend category. And so I just wanted to offer some clarification that you may not know what UW object code is associated with the item that you're adding to that section of the budget when you're preparing your budget. The menu, the drop-down menu will give you many different choices, and you can choose. So Jill, for example, if you were to go to number 5, supplies and materials. So the very first option is 05 miscellaneous. And then if you continue scrolling down the list, you'll see there's a much greater level of detail that you could choose from. You're welcome to use that additional level of detail if you know what object code or description is most appropriate to the cost being added, but you don't typically need to do that. If you wanted to just enter 05 miscellaneous, that is sufficient, except for when you're adding a cost that would be excluded from PDC and F&A under our MTDC cost base. So for example, Hayek Computing, which you'll already see in the list here, that 0304 object code is important because the system knows that no PDC or F&A should be calculated on that object code and added to your budget. So that is an example. Another example would be O362 subaward. O362 is important because the system knows to only charge PDC and F&A on the first $25,000 of that subaward. The system will not charge PDC or F&A on the amounts over that first $25,000. So that would be the one instance in which you would need to ensure you're using the correct, like the necessary level of detail for your expense. Otherwise, a miscellaneous is sufficient.
Yes, and we looked at many budgets in Sage Budget, and a lot of people just use the miscellaneous under the object code. They don't bother with the detail of the sub-object code.
I had a question.
Sure.
This is Sarah Webster. On a couple of recent budgets, I've been using an extra tab in the Excel spreadsheet to do a bill of materials, and then just copying the total over, so that just for my own tracking purposes to come up with the right answer for how much the materials and the pieces and parts are going to cost. Is there a way to do that here, or would the bill of materials be something I would do on an actual spreadsheet and then just copy over the number into Sage?
I would think you could do it by using the supplies, the 05 supplies and material. And like we were saying before, you could, if you wanted to add that detail, you could just use the 0500 and then actually type in, all the different supply, all the different materials.
So just have it be part of the main budget spreadsheet as opposed to kind of its own separate side worksheet.
Oh, go ahead, Catherine. Were you going to say something?
Sarah, I was going to ask if with your bill of materials, are you just copying the cumulative amount over to your worksheet and then all the details are on your separate worksheet? You're muted.
You're
Sarah.
muted. Oh, still muted.
Sarah, we can connect offline.
But yeah, you could just put the lump sum here too. You could have your bill of materials somewhere else and put the lump sum right in here for each period again, if you wanted to do that.
Jill, why don't you go over one more time the quantity and unit price section in case that is helpful in this context?
Sure, yes. Right. So if you wanted to list your bill of materials in here, you could do a detailed description. And then when you go into the section, you could, click, I'm going to have 45, I don't know. What do you guys use? 45, and then at a specific, like $59. So it'll calculate that for you. If you have that. So it'll work. There was a question. Does APL budget worksheet automatically select APL rates? It does not automatically select APL rates. You have to, in the worksheet settings, which is on every worksheet, you would expand this section and make sure you turn on APL. So like if I create a brand new worksheet, then APL is automatically turned off. So if I wanted this worksheet to have the option to have APL benefits for people, I would have to turn APL on. And then I don't have to turn on fixed fee, but if I know it has fixed fee, then I would turn that on as well. So.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
My screen minimized. I couldn't.
Oh, and then you can't find it. Yes, I know it hides.
Yes. So the answer to Catherine's question was, yeah, I would typically do that all in a separate tab, and then just copy the total over, because in these cases they're for these fab budgets, and so I have maybe 20 or 30 different lines of items, because I'm trying to kind of really accurately capture that, and so it just bulks up the main budget.
Yeah. And on this one, for instance, this is a non-deliverable fabrication worksheet or sub-budget. So yeah, you could just put like the total bill of materials as a description and your total by just one, if you, for in this case, in the total for all the bill of materials or for all the materials. And on a fabrication budget, one thing for me to point out is that there's no F&A on a fabrication, on a non-deliverable fabrication. So we don't have the F&A settings on this type of worksheet. So if you have for some reason, a fabrication that would need F&A, you would need to use the internal worksheet type for that. One thing I forgot to point out is for, let's go back to this primary worksheet. For if you have personnel that maybe are going to be like grad students, when I'm in this right side panel in the period setup area here, I could actually, if I select the sub-object code for a student, like grad student, then automatically you'll see this little snack bar menu popped up saying that we automatically added other costs, a tuition line. And then if you scroll down to other costs here, you're going to see that this tuition line has been added automatically for Jane because I was on Jane's lineup here when I added it. And then when I click into this period cell, I can see that I actually can type in the quarter salary or the quarter costs and how many are in how many quarters, and then how much tuition I have. And then I can add a percentage as well. Now, if my sponsor, if this is truly the right sub-object code for this person, but my sponsor isn't going to pay tuition, so I can't charge them tuition, I can unlink this cost and just turn it off. It will give me this warning that just says, usually when people have this sub-object code, we have tuition, but it's not going to charge you a tuition. It's just letting you know that, did you make a mistake on this? So it's trying to catch an error.
We have one question in the chat, Jill. They're wondering if they can open up a previously completed budget in read-only mode and then easily switch back and forth between that, that read-only version and the new one that they're working on.
Yeah, actually, like if I go to the history, maybe, is that what we're thinking? But this is going to open a budget up, one of my old versions of this budget, and it is read only because it's a snapshot. But I can easily go back and compare it. But I mean, I can do it because I have two monitors, so I'm looking at both of them. But that would be the best way to just kind of go back and forth between the two of them. Is that what you meant? Yeah. Oh, okay. Looks like it. All right. And then for this one, like if I decided, you know what, I did all these edits and now that isn't what I want to do. I want this original worksheet. The best way to kind of like revert it into an editable worksheet is if you just make a copy of it and it'll copy it. And then once the copy's made, it's now an editable version of that budget, and you can make new changes you want to it. It's that budget, but editable now. So it's the original. Another nice feature we have added is the ability to export the budget into Excel. So if I export it, I have several options of formats to export. I can export the budget summary, which is going to include all your worksheets. I can export an individual worksheet, or I have two options for the SF424. I can export the SF424 in the R&R detailed budget format for NIH, or I can do it in the non-NIH R&R detailed budget format. And the difference being that the non-NIH puts PDC in the direct costs, where NIH likes PDC in indirect costs. So that's the difference. But it's a really cool report that actually, if you're having to, I'll export it and show it to you. If you're having to type all your data into a federal form, that's a 424 form, we basically put this in the exact same format. So it makes it really easy to do. So this is the same budget we were just looking at, but it's showing all the detailed information the way the SF424 wants to see it, with your calendar months and fringe and key personnel and other personnel and all the different categories. And if you can't remember how something maps, or you're not sure, and this is editable too, so you can change these numbers around, but we just exported it the way we felt it should map. But if you have questions, this little link right here, this will link you to our Sage support page that shows you exactly which sub-object codes are mapped to which section on this form. And you can change it around if you want to. There is a cumulative roll-up as well that shows all the key details. Let me see if there was something else I wanted to make sure I showed you. Fixed fee, CPay, history. Yeah, that was pretty much everything I wanted to show you, but I also wanted to find out if you have situations that you're not sure how you would do it on this budget, or if you have additional questions. And also, if you do want to delete worksheets, it's easy to do. You just delete it. Does anyone have any questions, or a certain specific circumstance, or something that we should do that would make life easier?
One question in the chat about exporting to Excel and whether or not the Excel workbook will include the formulas.
It does not include the formulas. We went back and forth about that, and the formulas are really kind of sticky. So we thought it best not to export it, because if the formula does get messed up once it's in the export, then people would have the wrong data, and we didn't necessarily want anyone to have the wrong data. So we just decided not to do that. And you cannot import a budget. That was the other thing. It would have to be so specific, like cell 1A would have to be this exact field so we could map it back into Sage. And that was, maybe someday we can do that, but right now it would be really challenging. It kind of also defeats the purpose of doing this whole project. We wanted to redesign the budget so that it's as easy as Excel and has less chance of human error. So hopefully we've done that with our new design, and it's kind of a fun design, and we've added a lot of bells and whistles to it. So any other questions? How do you work on a budget if you don't have network connectivity? That's a good question. And see, I had that this morning. My network went out, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do with my budget demo? I don't have an answer for that. If you don't have network connectivity, I guess you can't do online work. Can you work in months only? Let's see. Is a percent effort based on 12 months? Percent effort. It's based on the number of months. Well, yeah, it's based on the number of months. Kind of a complicated answer. It's based on the number of months in the period. This case, it's a 12-month period. So it's calculating 5% of a 12-month period. But if it was a shorter period and you put 5% in, it would do 5% of that shorter period. One more question. Is there a way to see what changes someone has made, similar to tracking changes? That is definitely an enhancement we would like to make. We don't have that ability right now to track who did what, but that is definitely on the backlog as a wish list item.
Jill, this is Andy Jessup. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm going to clarify my question there about the percentage effort based on 12 months, because since we usually do yearly budgets, but because we have a leave, we pay, because we have a leave burden, we don't need to put 12 months in budgets for a full year. So we usually think of months, not percent effort. So can you My question was, can you just enter months as opposed to having to enter the percent effort?
I don't think that.
Andy, here's what I did and it worked. This is Chris. I changed it to 100% effort and then just changed the months instead of, and that seemed to make everything okay. I don't know if that messes up something else somewhere else. Jill, maybe you
I
can.
don't think so. No, that does seem to work. You can, I know you can do monthly hours too, if you have like a part-time person.
No, but you want the period to, I guess I'm confused. You want the period to be a year, and I just want to say I want 3 months of salary for this person.
Correct. So Chris, the way that you did it, that is the correct way to do it.
Yeah, so that confused me when I was doing that and I saw the person months and the month. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Catherine.
You'll see that when you do that, it automatically changes your monthly hours to 173.3. That's another indication that by making that change to 100% effort, that it's going to work. So then you could enter the actual number of months that you want, Andy, and it will calculate correctly. You could also enter the number of hours that you want. That would be another way of going about it. But for APL, you'll typically do it the way that Chris did it.
Okay, I guess I was confused about the original answer. So when you said it's based on the number of months, I thought you were talking about that's the period that change. The number of months is the period, but you're setting up your periods differently because they're not changing.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Jill, can you click on the academic/summer
Yes.
radio button?
Mhm.
And then click back on calendar. Okay, so Andy, what it's pulling from is the number of months associated with a calendar appointment versus an academic and summer appointment. So calendar appointments are 12 months, academic and summer are typically a 9 and 3 month split.
And Andy, this is Autumn. I'm going to jump in for a second because I'm wondering if your question is slightly different. The 12 months, are you thinking that changing that changes the budget period? Is that what your question is? Is that what you were thinking that it changed? I just want to make sure the question is clear.
Yeah, that's what I thought the original answer was when she said the percent efforts is based on the number on the months. And
yeah, changing
I understand the situation now.
Yeah, changing that square doesn't change the budget period. It just changes the number of months charged for that person.
Right. Yes, that is correct. Yes, I was under the impression, like in my mind, I was thinking I had set this up as a 12-month period. And when you put in 25% of that, that is calculating that off that 12-month period. But yes, if this person is only going to be, you're only going to charge the sponsor for less time, you can do this instead, or you could leave it at 12% and put it at 12 months and put in 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is Axel Schweiger. When I played with this, I had that same issue that Andy had. It's like we tend to think in total FTE months or something. This is the amount of months you tend to work, and then having to go back and figure out what the percentage effort is a little cumbersome. So is there a way to be able to type in, okay, I want 2 months, and it calculates the percent effort rather than the other way around?
No, we didn't do that, but that's a good enhancement request. So to say that, so the use case would be like, it's a 12-month period, but this person's only going to work 2 months of that period. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how I typically think about it. It's like, how long is it going to take me? Or that some person is going to take me. I don't think in terms of fraction of that time. I think, well, it's probably two months or something like that. And
it's two different definitions of percent effort.
Yeah. That is a good one. Okay. So we want to be able to put in the number of months and have it calculate the percent effort for the period.
For the period, yeah, but they're different things. So. We don't really, yeah.
Sorry. One suggestion would be that all three of those, the months, the percent effort, and the monthly hours were all, whenever you entered something in there, it just back calculated.
Yeah, I think that would be best.
Is that what you mean, Axel? Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good suggestion. We did hear a lot about, in the opposite way, we heard a lot of folks say that they wanted to, especially some academic departments, they have a lot of students, so they knew how many hours they would work in a month. And so we did put that in, that you can say if they're going to work 50 hours in the month, it will calculate percent effort for it that way, but we didn't do it with updating the month. So definitely a good one. All right, any other questions or suggestions?
I would echo, this is Andy again, I would echo Sarah's comment about being able to have a detailed list of things that then you populate the one line item. So is it possible to somehow link an Excel spreadsheet into one of your cells? So you have an Excel spreadsheet where you list all your supplies to build something, and then there's just one line item that says supplies to build, and it links in instead of having to go back and forth. Because you have to, if you change your Excel budget, then you've got to go in and change your Sage line. But if it was all in Excel, you would change it in one place and it would change it in the main budget.
Yeah, we
Jill,
are.
can I jump in? This is Autumn. I was thinking about Sarah's question. Could they simply, because Sarah mentioned she didn't want to bulk up the primary budget with her bill of goods. Could she could do a separate internal budget that rolled up, right? So where you have oceanography, non-deliverable fabrication, and then you have the new internal UW worksheet. Sarah could enter her information there instead of an Excel and treat it sort of as an Excel spreadsheet that then rolls up into the primary worksheet. Could she not?
Sure could. That's a really good suggestion. Yeah, she could definitely, create one of these an internal worksheet, call it whatever she wants, and then add the items in it and the amount of F&A on it. She could customize as well.
It would roll up into the summary worksheet, not the primary worksheet, correct?
Oh, yes, you're right. It would roll up to the budget summary.
But I think that would still meet the needs. It's still in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely having it in the budget somewhere so it's all tracked together is super valuable.
Yeah, that would work.
Can you clarify that? You're saying it would be in the summary budget, but not in the main budget. So would it have all the right overhead on it and everything? And you wouldn't see it all together, or?
You would see it on the budget summary. So the budget summary is kind of the main budget in this case. The primary worksheet is just for the organization that's requesting funding from the sponsor, and it's costs for that organization. The bill of materials, being that it is for the primary organization, if you had the fiscally responsible department listed as the APL, and you would be able to select the same exact F&A settings. So it would get charged F&A exactly the same rate as the primary worksheet. And then when you looked at the summary, you would see it. So if I added, I'll just add one because.
So Jill, I'm just going to chime in and say it slightly different way. The summary is a roll-up of all your worksheets and allows you to view the budget at a higher level of granularity. So you'll see it's rolled up to the object code level 0203. You can expand it if you choose, but if you want kind of that higher level view, the summary does that for you and includes all of the worksheets. Your exports to Excel also give you that option of seeing it at a more granular level in view or a more rolled up view. So you have a couple of different tools available to you to see it at a higher level, if that's helpful.
Mhm. Or a more detailed level, like we could literally add 30 lines of this 0500 and put what each one is. And then in this part, we would put the quantity of that item.
But you can't make that show up in the primary worksheet. It's only going to show up in the, as a line. You know, what you'd like to do is have that bill of materials total just show up in the primary worksheet under some thing you enter that says supplies for building X. And
You
you're
would
saying it
you
would
would
just show
want
up in
that
the
it would
summary.
it's going to show up under the in the summary.
Yeah, but the summary that is not where you're going to look to see how you change things to like you would from the primary worksheet.
But the summary is the summary of all of your worksheets rolled up.
Yeah. Like if I can put many, many different costs in here. And you know, just list them and then they're going to show up under here. But yeah, they will show up based on like grouped together in the budget summary. Now, if I export, I could export that, see them just that worksheet. Like if I wanted to just export the bill of materials worksheet, I could see them that way if I needed to see them just by that worksheet. The other option would be to add sort of a filter up here so you could filter and only see a specific worksheet at a time. But yeah, there's no really way to show a list of 34 items and 34 material items in the primary worksheet unless I list them in the primary worksheet, which you can do. But then like you were saying, it kind of clutters up the other costs because you're going to be listing a lot of items. So there are different ways to do it. It'll all roll up to be the right total.
And Jill, can you open up the Excel that you exported for a moment?
Yes. Opened up over here.
And that one you exported a single worksheet, right?
Yeah, this is just the single.
So on the,
oh wait, hang on.
oh, you did the NIH one.
There it is. It was behind it.
Here you go. So if the first tab, for example, rolls it up at a higher level. So you could build a more detailed budget for your worksheet within the tool and still use this export to see it at this higher level for just that worksheet if you chose. So that's what I meant by it gives you a few different tools for rolling it up as you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you click on the period, then it will actually itemize it for you. Which, you know, if I had 35 items here, it would show all 35. And in fact, it would do that on if I export the budget summary as well. It'll export every cost on the worksheet or on the budget.
We have two more questions in the chat, Jill, if we're ready to move on from this one.
Sure. Well, here's all those items in the budget summary. All right. What were they?
Let's see. Will the sub-budgets be created automatically for other departments?
No, you do have to add them. So when you start a budget, it's only your primary worksheet. And then if you are going to collaborate with another department that will have a different F&A rate, or if they have the same, either way, it depends how you want to show the different costs, but would just add the worksheet. And if it's another UW department, you'd use the internal UW worksheet. And then if it's an external entity, you'd use subaward and fabrication for any type of fabrication.
And then the other one was about preparing budgets that don't need OSP approval. So is that a use case for when they would still use Sage Budget, or do they have to create a spreadsheet for that?
I didn't know about budgets that don't need OSP approval, but you could use Sage Budget and you could attach it to your EGC1, or you wouldn't have to attach it to your EGC1. You could just export it and attach it as a attachment. I shouldn't say attach. You could connect your Sage Budget with an EGC1 and have it there, or you could use this tool and then export it and attach it. So there's two ways.
So there's no technical restrictions. You can use budgets for your own Sage Budget for your own purposes, but Catherine or the department might have some guidelines for you around when to use it, when not to use it.
Bonnie, I'd say it's up to you. You can use Sage Budget for that purpose, even if it's not going to OSP, or you could do Excel in that case.
Cool, thanks. I was also thinking about like proposals that occasionally require some salary redaction or have some logistics costs that, are sort of part of the calculation, but maybe are not getting folded into the sort of budget bottom line. I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking of exact examples, but there's times when there's things that are not allowed in a budget, but still that's going to the sponsor, but it's still, I still need to keep track of or want to kind of keep in the accounting stream. I don't know, I guess that's kind of a special case, but
yeah, that sounds. Usually, yeah, in general, the Sage Budget would be costs that you would be charging the sponsor for.
Bonnie, the Sage Budget is not actually transmitted to the sponsor. So if you had costs in your Sage Budget that you didn't want the sponsor to see, they wouldn't see those. And perhaps what you could do would be create a worksheet where you track those costs separately.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a perfect solution to that scenario. That's just the top of mind.
Yeah.
You have to be careful though on anything that's going to be routed through the institution. So if you're routing something through OSP, then you would only want to put the sponsored costs. Now down the road in the Workday future, we may see Sage Budget be expanded to also capture cost share costs, but that's in the 2 to 3 year time frame from now. But for now, if anything's routing through OSP, be careful about including extra worksheets because they're going to look at that bottom line in assumptions about it.
And what about sponsors that require salary reduction in budgets?
Would that be the same as like the salary cap? That we have to cap their salary?
No, sometimes, you're asked to kind of give a salary bottom line, but you're not allowed to show the monthly rate in the budget. What goes out to reviewers, for instance. I mean, but I don't think that the agency does the redaction. I thought it was on the institutional part where the redaction happens, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any situation for that.
Bonnie, does that occur in the proposal budget that actually gets submitted to the sponsor, or are you also doing that internal at UW?
I don't know. You can. I don't know.
What you can do within Sage Budget tool is you can adjust the person's salary as you need to.
Mm-hmm.
If there is, say, a cap specific to a particular role on the project, for example. So you do have that ability, but as far as redacting and not displaying, it's a new one that I haven't heard about, and we don't, as Catherine indicated, send this directly to the sponsor in this format. So it would likely be done in a different document, is my guess.
Okay, I think there's one more question. So as I understand it, there's exactly one level of roll up from the worksheets to the summary, not multiple levels from detail worksheet to a line item to a higher worksheet. That is correct. Right. All the worksheets roll up to the summary. So that includes the primary and all the other worksheets. So we've been kind of making the transition from the word sub-budget to worksheets because basically all these worksheets roll up to be into the summary, which is the project's budget. So, project totals.
What also might be helpful for the group to hear as we move through the feedback we collected on redesign is we had input that the prior version was too complex and intimidating for people to use and that we needed to simplify it. While at the same time, we had other asks for more complicated new components to be added. So it's really a balancing act with trying not to overcomplicate the tool with so many capabilities that a user who uses it less frequently can't understand and find their way around. So it's a challenge to meet all the varying needs of the institution in that way.
Okay, any other questions or scenarios you can think of? Well, I hope you guys will give it a try. We put a lot of work into it, and hopefully we've caught all the things you need. I mean, it's nice that you did identify one gap that we have, not really a gap, but a kind of a nice to have with that calculation of putting in months. And I do remember seeing that already in our backlog, so I'm pretty sure that's in there, but we just didn't have time to do the work for that.
May I ask a follow-up question on that one? So Jill, if you scroll down just a tad, not in the right side panel.
Oh, sorry.
And is that request to make the person months editable so that you could go in and just put person months and have it auto calculate the percent effort? Is that ultimately what that ask is?
I think that's true. That's what we're asking, Yael.
Okay.
Okay. And then what would we assume about the number of months? Well, because there's two other variables involved, right? There's the months that would need to have an auto calc and the percent effort.
Oh, yeah, so I guess that's not the same. Is person months just for that person, or is that to everybody?
Just that person. That's part, Jill, that's part of why we didn't implement it is because it was 3 moving pieces.
Yeah, 3
instead of just
variables.
2.
Yeah.
I'd say play around a little bit with the approach of specifying the months to be what you're thinking of as person months. So months would be 2 and percent effort 100. And play around with that a little bit. And if it continues to be challenging to kind of orient around that, let's keep talking in the future about what we would do if we opened up person months and what we would automatically assume about the other 2 calculations.
And if you do have questions, you can email Sage Help Desk, and that if they don't know the answer, they will probably forward it to me or one of my team members. And enhancement suggestions as well can go to them. And we prioritize, Judy and I work to prioritize any suggestions.
Chris, do you mean 100% default for the effort?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I figured out the workaround as Catherine sort of verified and Jill verified, it had 0% effort and 12 months, and I was stuck at the same question. since
Yeah.
Zach think about months. So if it defaulted when you open it up to 100% effort
Right.
and 0 months, say, then you could say, then you would leave everything the same. All you're doing is changing the default values. It becomes a little more intuitive. And then the people who want to have a number of months per hour could, maybe that's not as tricky. I don't know, that it may not be as useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because we asked the question of users during our development phase of whether or not we should default percent effort to 100, while at the same time defaulting the months to whatever the period was. If it was a year-long period, to 12. And the larger majority did not want that, which surprised me because I thought they would want to see a value in there for every person by default. But what you're suggesting is to leave the months blank and the effort 100%. So it's a little bit different of a question.
This is Andy again. I think it's an oddity of APL because, as I said, because of our leave allowance, full time for us is 10.25 months. If you want to fund yourself in terms of grant money, months you have to put in a grant, you have to put in 10.25 months in order to be fully funded. And that makes it even more obscure in terms of, well, what does the percent effort mean? So I think for us, you just keep the percent effort at 100% and you put in the months and then just don't worry about everything else because then you'd have to say, well, what is percent effort? Is it based on the 12 months or is it based on the 10.25 months you have to raise in order to have a full time on average because the rest of your time is leave? So it's just one of the oddities of APL that we think about all the time, but the rest of campus probably doesn't fathom.
Okay, I see. Thanks. That helped to explain. Okay, give it some time, give it some trial, and continue to provide us feedback as you use it with more regularity on what makes for more streamlined enhancements for you. And we're always open to that feedback.
Definitely. We want you to use it. So give us feedback. All right. Last call. Okay, well, I will stop the recording and I can figure out how to do that. Oh, here it is.